Welcome to Section 3 of Mastering Express Web Application Development, Proving It Works. So far, we've managed to install some useful libraries and build a small application with them. In this section, we'll be installing Mocha. It's a JavaScript testing framework. We'll also be writing our first test, refactoring our application. This means we'll be improving its internal structure to make them easier to test. Mocking, i.e., writing some tests for our application. Installing Sign-on.js, which is a standalone test spies. Stubs, and mocks for JavaScript. We'll be using test spies in this section. In this video, we're going to write some tests to prove that the code we've written works as expected. To do this, we are going to use a testing framework called Mocha. In this video, let's install Mocha. Mocha is developed by TJ Hollywoodchuk, who is also the creator of Express. We'll also install Expect.js, an assertion library, and we'll write our first test. So why do we need to do this? Our code might work now, but what about now as time? How about a month's time? Or maybe a year's time? By writing tests to prove that the code is doing what we expect, we can be sure that our application will continue to work so long as we make sure that the code always passes our tests. This is especially important when we start to collaborate with other people, as it allows them to make changes, knowing that they can just run the tests and make sure that they have not broken anything else. First, we need to install Mocha. We'll install it globally like the docs tell us to with npm install-g mocha. Be aware that you might have to install with sudo or as an administrator if the privileges of your Node.js install aren't correct. In addition to Mocha, we'll need an assertion library to use. In this case, we'll use Expect.js, which we'll install into our project. Now that we have it installed, let's make sure that Mocha works. To do this, we'll create a test that does not depend on our application code and run it. This is the test taken from the Mocha documentation. So let's save our file and just run Mocha. As we can see, the tests pass. Next, let's update our assertions. Whilst we could use the assert library, personally, I find Expect.js much easier to read. With asserts, we assert equals -1, an index of 5 in 1, 2, and 3. With Expect.js, we expect 1, 2, and 3, index of 5, to equal -1. It reads a lot more like the English language, which is why I find it easier. If you want to go on using assert, feel free, but I'll be using expect for the remaining of the tests. As we've changed our tests, we need to run them again to make sure that everything is still passing, which it is. Great! Our tests are running. All of our tests passed first time through, so let's add a test that is intended to fail to make sure that things are working correctly. We'll make it really simple. Let's just say that the number 1 is expected to equal the number 7. Obviously, this isn't true, so when we run the test, it will fail. Once the test has failed, we can change the number 7 to 1 and run it again to make sure that the tests pass. As all our tests pass, let's delete our 2 example tests so that we're ready to start writing tests for our application next time. Mocha allows us to define expected behavior for our code coupled with Expect.js, which allows us to assert that the expected behavior is actually what happens. Our tests help us to prove that things work as expected, both now and in the future. In the next video, we'll be performing a little refactoring on our application so that we can test things more easily.